Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. I just want to read from the title of the bill. H.R. 350, 117th Congress, second session, to authorize dedicated domestic terrorism offices within the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to analyze and monitor domestic terrorist activity and require the federal government to take steps to prevent terrorism. Well, we already know what this looks like. We've already seen this happen. The Department of Justice went after parents who showed up at school board meetings to voice concerns about what was happening in their child's school. Never forget what they did. They put in place this apparatus to report, to snitch on parents. Timeline, I think, here is so important. September 29th, last fall, September 29th, left-wing political organization National School Board Association writes a letter to the Biden administration asking exactly what this bill does. It says, use domestic terrorism, counterterrorism measures against parents. And guess what? 5 days later, the Attorney General of the United States writes a memorandum that does just that. Again, what this bill would codify and put into practice. He sends out a memo to every single U.S. attorney around the country. In that memo, he says, set up a dedicated line for threat reporting, a snitch line on parents. And guess what happens after that? 16 days after that, the FBI sends out an email to agents all across the country saying, when you investigate these parents, when you're doing this, parents who were reported on the snitch line the Attorney General established, put this designation, this threat tag label on their name. All that happens, and we know it happened because whistleblowers came forward and told us about 24 cases where this took place. This bill is going to codify exactly what they've been doing. That's why this bill is so harmful. One of the situations, one of the cases, a mom was reported, a mom who showed up at a school board meeting was reported, and the person that filed the complaint said, well, they were in the group Moms for Liberty, and she owned a firearm. Imagine that. A mom who cares about freedom and actually exercises her Second Amendment liberties. Now, what happened in Buffalo, we know is as wrong can be. But this legislation wouldn't prevent the terrible crime that took place there. This bill's the same bad bill that Democrats pulled 2 weeks ago, because a few of them had actually concerns about First Amendment protected activity and what this legislation could do. Again, specifically, it says it wants to create new offices to investigate folks in our armed services, in our military, and in our law enforcement for the possibility of infiltration by white nationalism. But of course, it says nothing about threats from the left, threats like Antifa. We know what happened the summer of 2020. It says nothing about that. This bill is dangerous because we've already seen the weaponization of government. We saw it in the IRS a few years ago. We've seen it in the FBI, as I just pointed out, most recently the Department of Justice working with the FBI to go after parents. This bill formalizes what we've already seen. That is why it's so dangerous. I urge a no vote on the legislation and reserve the balance of our time.
The gentleman